stage, passing wind. You probably can't. Oh, here it is. He's like a pulse wind. Anyway. And since then, we have worked with the homeless. We brought the homeless to the marketplace in order to earn their own living and not to rely on the generosity of strangers and not to beg and not to mug old ladies and not to do all those sorts of things. So over a period of 19 years, nearly 20, we're in our 20th year, we've given homeless people an opportunity of joining the rest of us and working for a living. But, lo and behold, you've got this situation where people are not paying for data or whatever you got. I couldn't understand half of what you were saying. I mean, where does she learn all that? What university teaches you that kind of stuff? I don't know, I've never heard of one. Anyway, but I did understand monetizing data, because we've got this weird situation, and it's your fault, you people who buy the big issue, because of 5 people who buy the big issue, only one of them takes the paper. So what happens is, we bring the homeless to the marketplace to earn their own living, stand on their own 2 feet, and the public turn them back into beggars and turn them back into people who then become even more pathetic, because if you want to get money out of somebody, try getting money out of people by being arrogant and above. You know, you can't say, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm not short of a few £15 notes and all that. No, give me some money, please. So our vendors have had to become more pathetic and tell bigger stories, because they know that as well as paying for the paper, you're going to give them a little bit extra and actually not take the paper. Verstehen Sie? You understand? So, we've got this weird situation. How do we get our hands on some of that money? How do we get people to take the paper? So my email yesterday was, how do we turn our flat business, which turns over in the UK about 23 million, of which we get about 8. And actually the 23 million is probably maybe 25, 30 million. It's an enormous business. But we get 8, and that 8 we spend on running the business, on developing businesses throughout the world, on taking risks with homeless people, on starting new businesses. And we're always left with about 200,000 or 300,000, which, as you know, is not an awful lot to do anything. And we need to develop new means of communication, and we have to develop new businesses, and we have to develop new things like that. We are all over the world. We started on the double yellow lines of the West End of London 19 years ago. We then spread all throughout the UK. We went to Russia. We went to all sorts of places throughout Europe. We're in all the continents except the icy one, where you've only got penguins. We're everywhere else. Can I take something out now? Would you mind, ladies, gentlemen, you won't mind, will you? If I whip something out? Because it's causing me great pain and suffering. My tooth. I have a 5-year-old son, and when he was 3, he was sitting on my lap and he went, boom! And he knocked my tooth out, so if I don't, it's going to end up in that girl's lap. There you are. And I had a drink last night, but not with Ronan Dunn. He has the same name as my mother. Her name was Eileen Dunn, and I asked him if there was any way we could have a bit of his money. You know, us Irish people have got to stick together, especially when someone's got a bit of money. Anyway, so we spread all over the world. Last month I was in Korea, where we started the big issue, and after having started it in Taiwan, the previous month, having started it in Japan 5 years ago, having started papers throughout North and South America, etc. We are ubiquitous. We are the largest providers of work for homeless people in the world, direct access. That means you can come straight out of prison, you can come straight out of the gutter, you can come straight out of the mental institution, you can come straight out of anywhere. And if you're needy, we will look after you and we will give you the opportunity of making your own money. And we are in 75 different countries, we have papers all over the place, and we work with people who are in desperate need of money and help. Now, I've divided my little session into 3 sessions, and I hope I have the time to get through them. The first one, I'm going to tell you about the help that I took and needed. Then I want to talk about the help that we did when we started the big issue. And then I want to talk about the future of help, because that's something that we really need to look at. So I'm going to redefine help in a way that maybe you don't seem to, that you would not necessarily think about. I come from a London Irish Catholic background, Notting Hill. I had a lovely upbringing in the slums of Notting Hill. It's now a slum, but it's a posh slum. I lived in the days when it was a very poor slum, and people like me were living in a house that was built for one family, and there may be 10, 15, 20 families, largely London Irish. So I was born into poverty. But not only was I born into poverty, I was also born into abuse. We were all knocking 10 colours of shit out of each other. The women were nearly all, the mothers were nearly always beaten up on a Friday night when Dad came home from the pub having had too much to drink. And my father used to beat 10 colours of shit out of my mother. And we lived a combination of constipation and diarrhea. Sorry, I don't want to put you off your lunch. And not only did we live poverty, we had to almost make ourselves think even worse. So our feelings about the world was anybody who had a bit of money was a, well, I won't use the word, because we, bollocks. They were a bollocks. And on top of that, we didn't like blacks, Jews, Indians, anybody. We didn't even like the English. And the reason for that was because not only were we poor, we had to, in a sense, be even poorer by thinking in these mind-forged manacles. We had to think bad. It is not enough to be poor. You have to actually think poor. At the age of 5, I was homeless because my mother, a lovely Irish lady who liked to drink and smoke and didn't like landlords, and the landlord threw us out and we were on the street. And then when I was 6, homeless again, 7, taken in by a Catholic orphanage in North London and told every day that we were the product. We were the product of people who did not pay their rent. And we had that. And then I came out at the age of 10, having done 3 years. I moved to Fulham, which is in southwest London, a posh place, no slums. And started to get into trouble. I started to become a shoplifter, a housebreaker, stealing cars, bicycles, anything. And I went through a load of grief. At the age of 14, I arrived in, I always love to tell the students at Oxford University Union, because I do lots of talks at university, and I always love telling them about how the first time I arrived in Oxford, I was wearing handcuffs. And I wasn't going to an S&M party either. I was going to a detention centre, Her Majesty's Detention Centre. And that's how I arrived. And then I went through lots more grief. And it went on like this. I could hardly read or write. I was a complete and utter piece of shite. Bollocks shite. No, we'll leave it at that.